kiddos, it's Miss Tannery. I'm so proud of how well you did today with Read to Self and practicing your Notice When You Lose Your Way strategy. And I can't wait to look at some of those charts, and I've already looked at some, to better understand what is keeping you from becoming a better reader and following your inner conversation. And I can't wait to see what you did about it as you read. And I want you to continue to use your Follow Your Inner Conversation strategy and your Notice When You Lose Your Way strategy from here on out forever, because it's always going to help you no matter what you read or how old you are. Those strategies can stick with you forever. So back with the Comprehension Toolkit strategies, we're going to move on to Read, Write, Talk. And as I mentioned earlier today, this was one of the favorites of my kids from last year. Has anyone ever read some paragraphs and then had a bunch of questions at the end? This is going to be a topic in our blog for this week. If you go through a couple of paragraphs at a time and you're reading along, and then all of a sudden, whenever you stop, you realize, I've got all these questions. What do you think about answering those questions? Do you want to stop what you're reading, put your book down or put your article down and answer those questions? A lot of times the answer is no. You don't have time, you're tired already, some of your meaning might be starting to break down if you were to stop and write those questions out altogether. So if you're following your inner conversation strategy, you can write them on Post-its. But sometimes we can use the Read, Write, Talk strategy, especially when you and a friend are reading the same article, and this works really well with nonfiction texts, like books about sharks, books about snakes, any of those books that a lot of you like to check out. Anything like a newspaper or a magazine article. And sometimes it can be boring to just stop and write down your questions. So, I don't think it's always a good way to help you understand what you read. Readers can answer those questions without understanding, and sometimes without even doing the reading. You all know that nothing is more important than your thinking when you read. What the reader is thinking and wondering about is what counts most, not the questions that come at the end. Your inner conversation matters most. Your inner conversation matters most because it is where you construct meaning when you read. Today I'm going to show you a way to write and talk about what you have read so that you can better learn, understand, and remember. And we call this practice Read, Write, Talk. I'm going to use an article called A Focus on Girls' Education to show you how this works. So I've taken a picture of it on ImageMate and cropped it to fit the page. And you're going to get the same article tomorrow and practice it during Read to Self. And we call this type of instruction a text lift. If I lift it from the page and post it up here. Because I've lifted the article out of the magazine and put it up here on the Promethean board. That way we can think about it together. So as I read the article, I'm going to stop, think out loud, and jot down my thinking in the margins. You'll notice that I stop, think, and react as I read rather than just read on. Or as I read rather than just read on. My reactions might include some questions, some connections, or some new information. After I've shown you all my thinking, you will be able to record your thinking and talk with each other like an elbow buddy about some of your ideas. So after we have some time to practice tomorrow with the article, you're going to get the chance to talk with a partner about what you wrote down in the margins. So let me start off by reading the first paragraph of this Meet UNICEF article section, which explains that what UNICEF is and does. The girls' education article wouldn't make much sense if I had no background knowledge about UNICEF. And right now I don't, so I need to read that introductory paragraph. And it says, UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, is an organization that helps children in 158 countries and territories. Every day in some part of the world, UNICEF programs deliver food supplies, clean water, vaccinations to protect people from diseases, school supplies, and emergency relief to children and their families. What a terrific organization. Some of you may have heard of all this good work done by UNICEF in relation to the tragic Asian tsunami in 2004. You may or may not have heard about that. Y'all were very young. But now that we all know what UNICEF is, I'm going to take a minute to just skim over this page. And don't forget to pay attention to the title, the map, the captions, and the subheadings tomorrow when we practice, because all of those things are going to help me understand what I'm reading. So now that I've gone over the article, we are going tomorrow, when you go over the article, chat with a friend about it. Okay, so I'm going to begin by reading. Over 121 million children don't go to school. Almost 65 million of them are girls. All children should have equal rights, but in many parts of the world, girls do not have the same rights as boys. In Bangladesh, one of the poorest countries in the world, many girls receive smaller portions at mealtimes than their brothers. In some nations, such as Bolivia, girls often stay at home to care for younger brothers or sisters, do household chores, or work in the fields. In India, some families send only their sons to school. And schools in many African countries charge high prices, forcing poor families to choose from which of their children will be educated. Automatically, I think, this is crazy. Over 121 million children don't go to school. I'm going to circle it and I'm going to draw an arrow in my margin. This number is outrageous. That number's outrageous. And to top it all off, 65 million of those are girls. So I'm going to write over here, not fair. That is not fair. So this is really shocking and sad. It turns out that girls don't have equal rights in many parts of the world. I never knew how much worse life is for girls than it is for boys in some other countries. This is so unfair. I can't believe girls get smaller portions to eat in Bangladesh than boys. How horrible. It is so sad that Bangladesh is one of the poorest countries in the world. So, immediately I'm going to ask a question. Why do more boys go to school than girls? And immediately I can refer back to the first paragraph. They don't have money. Some families choose to only send their sons, and some families are forced to choose. And in some countries, the culture is that way, where girls receive smaller portions at meal times. I can't imagine that. It's certainly not like that here. So what I want you to do tonight, in your reading log, I just want you to react with your text, okay? Just write down some reactions, kind of like I have. Of course, you won't be writing in the margins in your book, but you can write it in the summary section of your reading log. And I also want you to get onto Gaggle, and this is required. Get onto Gaggle, find the Read, Write, Talk blog on Miss Tannery's page, and respond to the question that is posted there. I hope you have a good night, and I can't wait to practice this strategy with you tomorrow.